Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Windham Southeast Supervisory Union monthly meeting. This meeting of the Windham Southeast Supervisory Union will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely, and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice of agenda. If a member of the public or the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email or text. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary to time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call in accordance with the law. Okay. Welcome, everybody. We have a very short agenda this evening, so hopefully we'll be able to get through it and go home early. Does anyone have any alterations that they would like to make to the consent agenda? And yes, Carrie will not be joining us this week. All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes of December 11th, 17th, and 20th, and the warrants and payrolls.
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you very much, everyone. We now move on to public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the public who has a comment they would like to make? Okay, there are not that many people on Zoom. Okay, I guess we're gonna move on to the administrative report. Mark?
Okay. I hope everybody had a nice new year. It's nice to be back in our schools. As we head into, we're in January, but throughout the month of January, the first week of February, we'll be engaged in Windsor data benchmark meetings at all of our schools. So it's an exciting time of the year to kind of see where we're at and set goals for the spring. Not only for individual schools, but for individual students. So that'll be taking place throughout the rest of the month. What's interesting is this round, where, as you know, we've been engaged in peer observation for the last few years for instruction. For these data meetings, we're actually going to do principal peer observations. So I'm going to be assigning principals to attend different schools and observe the principal of that school in how they interact and show instructional leadership at a data meeting. So that's new. We've never done that before, and I'm excited about the prospect. That being said, as you know, at our last SU meeting, we adopted a change in our food service for next year, and we are in the process of developing our own food service program. The first really big step in doing that is identifying a school nutrition director. So what I brought today in hard copy form is a job description for school nutrition director. And the hope is that the SU board will adopt this position and this job description tonight, and we will immediately begin to advertise and start the recruiting process for the new director. So I'll give you a few minutes just to kind of read over the job description. This was developed a combination of the ad hoc committee that has been formed that's done a tremendous amount of work to get us to where we are here tonight, and Michael Callahar as well. So our ad hoc committee has approved this job description and has worked on it the last 2 Fridays. And then Michael, our HR director, has put the finishing touches on it just yesterday, actually.
And Tim, I sent this to you by email earlier today, if you want to look at it along with everybody else.
I can have Michael spell out the acronyms if that's helpful for the final draft. But ideally, we have this posted before the weekend and we start the process.
Yes, Sean.
I have a question. Where will the individual be centered? Will that individual have an office, clerical staff, and so forth?
We'll have to create a central office space, and then there will be space at the high school, I would think, would be. So it'll be multiple spaces.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
And that's to be determined still.
I'm glad to see that they'll be working closely in conjunction with the business administrator.
Yep.
Does that put an undue burden on an already extremely busy position?
It adds to his plate for sure, but I think it's the proper supervisor for this level of funding that we're putting into the program.
Yeah. Yeah, I was impressed when you and Frank brought the initial idea of moving over, maybe not the initial idea, but when we approved it
Yep.
at the board level. So I think the fact that the superintendent and the business administrator are so behind it
For sure.
makes it really very, very palatable. No pun intended.
Susan Grabowski will be working very closely with the director as well. She's been very influential on the ad hoc committee.
Tim.
Yeah, I think it's a well-written job description. I would have added a little language about the managerial obligations. But my question is this in compliance with our hiring policy?
Yes.
So the board doesn't need to approve the SU board is responsible for reviewing this, and then what would be the process?
It's my hope that the SU board would approve this job description tonight, and then we will post and start the recruiting process.
More discussion? Deborah Stoll.
So, I know it came up in the policy meeting earlier, D1, personal recruitment. And this position is not listed at the end, at the conclusion of that document. Do you anticipate that SU board members would be involved in the interview process, the search.
Yeah, once we start developing the outline for the search, I would ask for a representative from the SU board to participate.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Tim, is your hand up again or just still up?
No, it's still up. I'll lower it now, but what would be the, how would the salary range be determined?
It would be through an analysis of other school food service directors in the state of Vermont. So Frank would do a review of what other school districts are paying their food service directors. And Mike would do a review, I think he has done a review of other job descriptions of food directors, but it's an administrative position.
Would that be included in this year's budget?
Yes.
Is there a line in the budget now for it?
Frank has accounted for this.
I think he's looking for a line item.
Yeah, I don't have the exact line item.
Can we ask Frank to find that for us and send us an email?
Sure.
Does that help, Tim?
Yeah, thank you.
Frank did mention in the last meeting that there was a contingency fund that could be employed in order to initiate this. And I can't remember the exact number, but it was, I think it was in the hundreds of thousands.
Couple hundreds,
Yeah.
couple hundred thousand.
Yeah.
Thank
So-
you, Sean.
That is a very valuable transition fund that would help, smooth the ways.
I agree. Is there any further discussion?
But nevertheless, we would like to see
Yeah,
the line item.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure that something comparable is there because Fresh Picks was still in until we, approved this idea. So it's not like it's starting from scratch.
No.
There's a good deal of, I think it mentioned somewhere when I was reading the total budget for the foods is substantial. Is that in this? Or did I do- Oh, yeah, 2.8 million. So, and that has probably a lot of revenue from the federal and state government, including that figure.
Mhm.
So it's, it's not all on a tax implication.
Correct.
And it actually doesn't really, according to what Frank said last meeting, it doesn't really change that much financially. I mean, it could, but it's not gonna be a huge tweak.
Other questions?
Even though this is not on schools, I don't think it's on School Spring, but would the diversity questions be included?
Yes.
Is it on School Spring? I don't think it
I
would.
need to have it approved before we advertise it.
Oh, right, of course.
I'd like to make a motion that the WSESU board approve the job description as laid out for the school nutrition director.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, you are all set with that, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Did you have any new hires or? Okay. So, moving on to new business, Tim has written a lovely new policy for us. And we would like to vet it before presenting it for first reading, so here we are to vet it. Sorry, I have it open in the wrong thing, so I can't edit it where I am. Please stand by. Okay. Do we have opinions, corrections? Yes, Sean.
Yeah, under C2, I was just wondering about the terminology, Windham Southeast Supervisory District. I think it should be school district.
Yes, it should.
And then also for the Vernon Supervisory District, it's actually a school district. And then at the end of the document, I printed it out, but I left the back page, but I think I remember it says, by approval of the WSESD.
Yeah, it says adopted by the WSESD board, so
And
it should be W.
SU.
Just
Yeah,
changed it.
SU.
So, is it time for questions?
Absolutely.
So I wonder, I'm not too familiar with this whole process, so I wonder what changes does this policy represent?
It formalizes a policy that did not actually exist before. We did not actually have the evaluation, how we do it, or contract negotiations as a policy before. Even though we were doing, the annual superintendent evaluation is mentioned in policy, but this spells it out as Tim has done here. You know, who we will be contacting, you know, Vernon School District, the SD, and he points out we may contract with the SBA, but good, it leaves us open to trying something different if we decide we're dissatisfied with that service. Yes.
Did you want a question?
So it just puts in writing the procedures that we've been following, where it has not existed in writing before, in this way, for it all to come together. That's how I view it.
Well, it prevents any future board from having the chair negotiate unilaterally.
And that's fine.
It also includes representatives from the staff to be included in the process. An idea that we've discussed the last 2 years, but hasn't been put into the process yet.
Yes, Sean.
And statewide, is there a policy very similar to this in most supervisory unions?
I don't know.
And does it have is there a sample policy from the VSBA as?
No, there is not.
No, but other districts have them. I looked at several across the country.
Yeah, I haven't seen them, but the VSBA doesn't have one.
So, going to your point, Tim, under C, number 2, it says, district board members, administrative staff, and representatives from the teaching staff, example, department head. So it's rather open-ended. Administrative staff can mean principals, assistant principals, directors of programs. So it leaves it pretty open-ended.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we certainly can't have 700 staff members doing the evaluation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The only part I'm not sure about is the 3 board members on the negotiating team, because that makes a quorum.
Mhm.
But I'll run it by Pietro. This is a contract policy. I would run this by Pietro before it ever comes to a first reading.
I would think that we would want a quorum.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if forming a subcommittee, I'm fine with it being a quorum. I'm just not sure that open meeting law is fine with it being a quorum, but that's why we have a lawyer.
Yeah.
So we're not actually voting on this
Yeah,
tonight.
I see.
But I wanted to see, this looked pretty straightforward to me. Sean was right about changing, SD and that sort of thing. But again, I would have to send it to Pietro. But if we are all in agreement, I could present this for a first reading at our next meeting.
Is
Yes, sir.
Carrie in attendance at this meeting tonight?
Carrie is not in attendance at this meeting tonight. Carrie's had an emergency and could not be here this evening. She texted me in my last meeting.
Because I think it would be pretty good to have the other district and the supervisory union very much involved with this policy. And if there is no representation from one of the 2 districts that make up the supervisory union, then I'm not sure that's, covers all the bases.
Well, we don't have to have them all covered just yet because we
Yeah.
haven't even had a first reading yet.
Yeah,
But I'm sure I'll be able to speak to Carrie at some point, and
yeah.
I can speak to Walter Bro from Vernon too, if you want.
I'm sorry.
I can speak to Walter Bro, who's chair of the Vernon board as well, if you'd like.
Yeah.
See, Deborah still has her red pen, so I'm not ready to move on yet.
What'd you say, Ann?
Deborah still has her red
I've
pen,
got
so
my red pen
we're
out.
not ready to move yet.
Yeah.
Well, I also share your concern about the, under C, negotiation process. That's a quorum. The board chair and no fewer than 2 other members, so that would be a total of 3. And,
Again, if it's not a problem, then it's not a problem.
Problem,
But
right.
I will ask.
right.
Can I ask what the problem with the quorum is?
That, my understanding is that if there's a quorum, then it has to be a warned meeting. There can't be a negotiating team that represents a quorum unless it's a public warned meeting.
Right.
Yeah, we're
Of course,
just
it
not
could be.
sure.
It could be an executive session, but I think the public should be warned when this process begins.
Okay, all right. So,
Yeah, like I said, I don't have objections. I'm just not sure it's allowed, but again, I'll run it by Pietro and he'll tell me whether it's allowed or not in no uncertain terms. Yes, Sean?
That does bring up something for me, because if it is a quorum of this SU board, and additionally, it looks like there'd be numerous administrators present, so it becomes a large group that would be working on a single individual contract within the district. And I just wonder if that could get top heavy.
It's not a big team for, as far as the authorization, I mean.
Well, it said the
negotiation?
administrators.
no, we're looking at letter C.
Yeah, the negotiation
Charlie.
process.
Letter C, negotiation process, the first
Oh,
one,
okay.
under
Okay.
board authorization.
Okay,
Yeah, the other part where that looks top-heavy is those are just the people that the survey will be sent to.
Right. So I'm ready for Pietro to see this.
Okay,
I'm comfortable with that.
you? And I will check in with Vernon, but I will send it off to Pietro, and if he says it's fine, then I will put it on the agenda for our next meeting for a first reading. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Back to my agenda.
Do we
Thank you,
need to
Tim.
vote on it?
I'm sorry?
Do we need to vote?
No, we will not vote because it has to have 3 readings. So I don't need a vote to bring it to a first reading.
Okay.
Well, so moving on to old business, we have policy. Again, the following are presented for adoption. D1, personnel recruitment, selection, appointment, and background checks. D2, professional development. D4, educator supervision and evaluation, probationary teachers. F4, searches, seizures, and interrogation of students by school personnel. F5, searches, seizures, and interrogation of students by law enforcement personnel or other non-school personnel. And F22, student assessment. All of these have been approved by the SD board. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you very much, everyone. Those policies are adopted. The following are presented for a second reading. E14, environmental awareness and responsibility. F26, participation of home study students in school programs and activities. And 42, school desk code. The following are presented for a first reading. G1, curriculum development and coordination, and G13, acceptable use of electronic resources and the internet. All of these have also been adopted by the SD. But this is a first reading and a second reading. Okay, is there any other business besides an executive session which we will need after all? No action will be taken. Anybody? Okay, great. I would entertain a motion that we would enter into executive session under 1 VSA 313A7, the academic records or suspension or discipline of students.
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, we will be entering executive session at 5:31, and I will put all these other nice people in the waiting room. But again, no action will be taken, and we do not have anything else on our agenda this evening.